Right, welcome to Rambling Achieved. Today, as you can see, it's going to be a solo video. Usually, I think I've said this before, but just to make sure I'm re-clarifying, when there isn't the camera on, it's probably going to just be me talking about random little topics and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's what we got today. Was thinking about trying to not talk about games that I've spoke about in length before, because you can kind of get trapped into that, um, scraping the barrel again and again. Saying like, "I love Mass Effect, I love this," and stuff like that. So I've decided to look on true achievements at games that I've gone and played, and not only gone and played but beaten as well. And as you can see here, if everything is working properly, there are 5 tabs here for 5 different games, and they are all games in which the thing that they have in common is very low true achievement numbers. Obviously, that's not the end all be all number. Obviously, there's people who don't use true achievements on Xbox, but a good indicator as to whether or not a game's doing like fairly well is, it usually mirrors that. If it's 50,000 players and stuff like that, it's done pretty well. But what I wanted to do was 5 games to recommend today where, as you can see, sub 5,000, so fairly underrated entries and games that are definitely worth your time though. And we'll kick things off with Adam RPG. So this came out in 2021 for Xbox. I believe it launched on PC quite a few years back. I think it was a few years before it came out onto consoles. But this is a game in which you can definitely feel its deep inspiration from the original Fallouts. Um, as I'll play the trailer. Yeah, so this was something where they're very, very inspired by the original Fallouts. It's a turn-based RPG, very much similar to how the original Fallouts were. Um, and yeah, I don't see anybody really talk about it all that much, and it's kind of disappointing because yeah, it's a little bit rough, but it's a very small indie project, and it did well enough to get a sequel, which was awesome. But this just feels really similar to like how Wasteland 2 felt. Um, there's just a lot of passion here and a lot of love for this type of thing, and it has its own sense of humor as well. Um, I guess a very, very minor spoiler, so if you don't want to hear anything about it, skip forward a little bit. Um, but you go to a bunker in this game very early on, and it was kind of funny because I didn't think it would have any amount of reactivity to what you do as the player, really. I thought it would just basically do the trappings of if you click a speech check and stuff like that, then that's the kind of thing that will cause an outcome. But you had a bunker in the game that you entered, and then you were exploring it and looting it and stuff like that. And then when you go to leave, you get ambushed by this group of bandits, and it is a brutal early game like fight. So if you've gone like beelining it straight to the main objective, like you're gonna struggle because you're gonna be heavily under equipped. And I remember kind of like dying a few times. I was like, wow, this is really tough. Um, like have I done something wrong? Like, am I just not like understanding the mechanics and stuff like that? And I ended up googling it, and the developers actually in forums chatting to people, and it was kind of funny his response of like, "Oh, did you not decide to eat the mushroom inside the cave thing?" And people were like, "No, why would we do that?" And it spawns like an entire conversation where you eat the mushroom and it gives you bad breath, so that when you're talking to them, when they end up bumping into you and demanding that you give them the stuff, you can turn around and go, "Oh no, I'm infected." And I just thought something like that from such a small team, just that level of thinking outside of the box for something so indie-like was really, really funny and definitely worth people's times. So yeah, it's a great game. Fairly cheap as well, 1924 in the UK. So I'm not going to break the bank with it. And then moving on, we have Warhammer 40,000 Mechanicus. These games are all of these games are kind of inspired, actually, funnily enough. But this is very XCOM esque in its inspiration. Kind of a breath of fresh air in many ways, because this was kind of, you had Warhammer Inquisitor Martyr, and then this that came out, and then obviously you've had Space Marine 2 and Rogue Trader, but these Inquisitor Martyr in this felt like the first couple of steps to really trying to put effort into Warhammer games that weren't just RTSs like Dawn of War and Total War Warhammer. So yeah, this is a really good XCOM like. Really was impressed with this. And also just the fact that it's Mechanicus, like it's not something that you usually see all that much in when they're covering Warhammer. It's very easy to, you have obviously Space Marine. Bolt Gun is also covering the Space Marine side of things. They've done a few Orc games, but yeah, you don't really see, the Mechanicus get all that much coverage. So it was kind of cool to see that, and the Necrons as well. They're fairly heavily underrepresented in the games. So yeah, really cool. Not too difficult either, and it wasn't too long either. I think when this trailer ends up finishing up, I think it was about 12-ish hours it took me to finish the game. So yeah, doesn't demand all that much time. 12 hours and 14 minutes. So yeah, that'll be the second recommendation to check out. Really, really enjoyed it as well. As you can see, rated it 5 stars. Other people didn't seem to like it as much, given it's sitting at 3.93, but that's still a pretty good review score, all things considered. And then leading off into this, Ruined King, a League of Legends story. I had zero expectations for this game. I've never played League of Legends. I think maybe I've played a match or two when I was on PC back in the day, but never enough to get a grasp or understanding of anything, or really have any interest in getting a grasp of understanding of anything. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the people who brought, Battle Chasers Night War and then Darksiders Genesis. So it's much more in line with Battle Chasers Night War, and I'd played that as well. This really is a lot of fun. It's got a very unique way of handling combat because it's mimicking aspects of the MOBA. You have a lane system when you're attacking, so you're able to use different abilities and they will dictate what lane you're going to be going into. So a weaker ability will be in a lane which will allow it to go out faster, so you're able to do it more often, and then you're able to build up bigger attacks in the longer lanes and stuff like that. And that was kind of cool. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it also attributed its afflictions and stuff like that into them lanes as well. So there was a very good amount of variety and taking a spin on turn-based combat that I don't think I've ever seen been done before in that kind of way. There probably are other games that have done it in similar veins, but I've never played it that have done it in that way. And that was like really, really cool. Also, the art style is incredible for the game. Could have probably picked out a better trailer. I think this is just kind of like a cinematic trailer. Let me pause actually. I'll try and find the combat because it really is really cool. Give me one moment. Alrighty, I'm back. Shout out to Ice Barge, I think, Games. When this ends, I'll end up, what do you call it? Unfull screening it, and you can see the name of the channel. But this is the combat. And apologies if you can't see it all too well. But at the bottom there, you have like these lanes. And when you're choosing abilities, it moves them up or moves them down. Which is really, really cool. But it doesn't seem like he's doing any of that. Oh, wait, he might choose it here. No. Yeah, there you go. So you can see things moving, and it's really cool. And really unique. So yeah, Ice Barge Gaming. Thank you for covering the combat. So yeah, really, really cool. Haven't really seen games do turn-based in that way before, really. So that was kind of interesting and unique. Alrighty. On to the next one. The Last Oroku. Another one where it just... I had no expectations going into this one either. I remember hearing about it and being kind of surprised that nobody was talking about it at the time. I believe this is one where it came out, it didn't do particularly well, and then they ended up doing a Final Cut edition. So they did like a revision of the game, did some overhauling and some changing, and improved it in many aspects. And yeah, when I finally got round to playing it, it was really, really enjoyable. It's actually one of the few games I wrote a review about on True Achievements. I don't think I've done another one since, but yeah, it's kind of very inspired by Dark Souls in many ways, but it felt also really Piranha Bytes-esque. It's kind of like a 50-50 split between that, and it has surprisingly branching paths, because it's not just like a standardized Souls-like in which you're just going through and you're exploring areas, of course, but you're able to choose whether or not you want to side with the rat faction. Apologies, I can't remember the name. It was a rat faction, and then they kind of look like the Prometheans from Aliens, from Alien Covenant and stuff like that. And yeah, it was kind of surprising that it had that kind of level of ambition to be like, yeah, you can start off, you're basically a prisoner in this faction, essentially. It feels like, and then there's like a very early section where you have to be kind of stealthy to do something, and if you fail at the stealth encounter, it doesn't end the game, it just pushes you down a path, which was really, really cool. A little bit stiff in its combat, and isn't the most polished game by any means, but again, like with many of these games on this list, none of them are particularly expensive, especially now. So they're definitely worth giving a go. But yeah, really fun action RPG, third person, and also co-op. So a fun little co-op game if you want to give that a go. And then we finally arrive at this, and this is kind of a little bit of a cheat because I'm going to go to this. So the first game released in the 1st of December 2015. I think it launched straight into Games with Gold at the time, when Games with Gold was a thing. So this has 110,000 players. But a lot of them people didn't follow over to the sequel. As you can see, 3,000 players. I don't know how many were in the third game. Let's have a quick look. 27,000. So I think the third game also launched into Game Pass as well. I don't know if the second one did. But this is a trilogy of action RPGs in the vein of Diablo, is what it really is heavily inspired by. And you play as Van Helsing. Really blew the doors off for me of exposing me to Neocore, who I've grown to really love over the years. They've given me the Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing games, also World of Van Helsing, Death Trap. If you're into tower defense games, that is what this is. It was a game mode in which was present in the Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing game that was pretty popular with the community, so they ended up breaking it off and making it into its own separate standalone thing. And as you can see, I've put a lot of time into it. I very much like tower defense games, but yeah, a lot of people played this one, so can't really shout that one out. And then they also did the King Arthur, Knight's Tale, and Legion 9 games, which were really, really fun. But back to the Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing. Yeah, just a very underrated game overall. It a tiny bit stiff in its abilities and stuff like that. Like, you can definitely feel that they aren't, of course, on the level of Blizzard, but it just oozes charm. There's so many Easter eggs in each of these games, which are really fun when you stumble upon them. There's plenty of build variety that you have with your character. I don't know how many classes, but there is a lot of classes. As you can see here on the screen now, that was the tower defense layout. But yeah, just a really cool thing. And also, it did a somewhat similar system to Mass Effect and its trilogy by allowing you to import your character from the first game to the second game to the third game, and also keeping in choices that you made as well, because there are a couple of small choices that you can make in the game, which is really cool. So yeah, there you go. That's 5. I don't know what I ended up naming. 5 truly underrated titles is what I named the playlist. So we'll go with 5 truly underrated titles on True Achievements that I highly recommend people, check out. So there you have it, little short video. Hopefully you were exposed to at least one new title that has flown underneath your radar, and you can give a go. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you somehow stumbled upon here before Brandon's channel, make sure to go check that out. The link will be in the description below. He does incredible content himself, and he is an absolute gem and hooks me up with all the thumbnails for the videos, so thank you very much. And if you want to join a Discord with like-minded gamers such as yourself, make sure to pop a comment down below, and I'll hit you back with a link. And yeah, that is it. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one.